There it is, Sipple. It says we're live. Welcome in, Husker Extra Live. It's Parker. There's Steve right there. I almost said I'm Steve. It's been a crazy week. I'm not Steve. I'm Parker. That's Steve. Husker Extra Live brought to you by Tom Dinsdale, Automotive Group of Grand Island and Hastings. Obviously, thank you to them. We will give a couple of minutes here to let the people filter in, Sipple, and to as always, put your questions, comments, thoughts, observations, anything else in the comment section, either on Facebook or YouTube. We can see them all, and we will get to as many as we can. Yeah, it's been an interesting week, hasn't it, Sipple?
Yeah, in some ways. Everything moves so fast that, I guess I'd frame it up as interesting in a lot of ways. Expected in some ways. I think you would agree, Parker, when news came. When did you find out about Graham Mertz testing positive?
Sunday night, I think, was when it first was on the internet. Like, not confirmed, but I mean, Wisconsin still hasn't confirmed that he specifically, but it's obvious. It's been reported widely. So, yeah, Sunday night was the first inclination of that.
So, I guess when that happened, I remember our immediate discussions were, I wonder if this would be something that they have more players that could be in jeopardy, or have tested positive. And so from that standpoint, I think we anticipated that it could happen, and then it happened, and then it got a little crazy, right?
Yeah,
It got a little crazy. Although you would agree that Nebraska. Actively seeking out an opponent, a non-conference opponent, well, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's been the tack they've taken all along.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they've always been interested. I mean, the bottom line, the simplest way I know how to explain it is that they've been interested all along since, June, interested in playing the most games possible, regardless of what that looks like. They want to play as many games as they can.
It's interesting that some people kind of take them to task for that. I haven't squared that up completely in my mind. The Big Ten this morning, the Council of Presidents and Chancellors, I guess, denied Nebraska the opportunity to play Tennessee Chattanooga. I don't know why, and there's been no explanation, and I'd like to know why.
No explanation at all.
Right. And maybe, Parker, I don't know. I think we asked Ronnie Green for explanation, right? The chancellor, and just we're told no interview.
Not so far. Yeah, maybe at some point, but not today was the word on that.
I reached out to Bill Moose. I did ask Bill Parker if he knew why, and I just haven't heard back from him. I don't know why it can't come from the Big Ten. I don't know why the Big Ten couldn't just release a simple statement, even if it was not a great reason, just something.
Right. Right.
So that's that.
We got a bunch of questions in here already. Thank you guys all for joining us. There's a lot of you, so appreciate that. What do you got there, Sipple? Is that a little mineral water?
I have some bubbly, like it's
bubbly
sparkling water. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Is that lemon flavored? It look pretty good.
Mango.
Oh, wow.
Mango. Yeah.
Jim says, I'm Jim. Yeah, Jim, I know. It's hard to keep straight sometimes. Appreciate that. Lucas, good evening, guys. Anything going on, right? Ryan's watching from South Carolina. Ryan, welcome.
Cool. Great state.
Yeah. Do you expect Omar Manning to be ready for the Northwestern game? Sipple, from Matt, a football question.
Parker, go ahead. You're the beat writer. You're the best guy to ask that question.
I would tend to think so. I thought the way that Matt Lubick and Scott Frost talked about Omar Manning this week, I thought that I was anticipating seeing him in some capacity. I mean, at the very least in uniform, maybe on the field, had Nebraska played Saturday against Wisconsin. Now, I mean, was he going to play 70 snaps? I don't know. If you want to look for a silver lining to this whole cancellation thing, I mean, there's a lot to be learned from playing against Ohio State. There's a lot of young guys who got their feet wet against Ohio State that now have the equivalent of a bye week. Now, obviously, everyone would rather they were playing this weekend. I think that much is clear. But I think you're going to see it gives everyone. I mean, it gives Brendan Hymas the same thing, but I think it especially gives young guys who maybe just got a little bit of work on Saturday. Ethan Piper got more than a little bit, 30 snaps or so. But Marcus Fleming, Alante Brown, Miles Farmer, the young guys, Nick Henrich, guys like that, gives them a lot of time to take what they learned playing against Ohio State and get ready for Northwestern. And then it gives guys who you're trying to get on the field for the first time, Omar Manning, Jordan Riley, Luke Reimer, also time to sort of, get to a position where they're ready to go. So, yeah, I would think we don't know what's up with Jack Stoll yet on the injury front, but you would think that Nebraska, obviously, depending on how COVID testing goes, we've seen how that can impact things this week. But from an injury standpoint, outside of what we don't know about Jack Stoll, I would think that Nebraska would be playing with close to a full deck when they go to Northwestern a week from Saturday.
Yeah, I wish I was playing with a full deck. Hey, here's the deal, Parker. I agree with what you say for the most part, or what you just said for the most part. But don't you think that in the case of like Omar Manning, a game against Tennessee Chattanooga could have been really beneficial?
For sure. Yeah, that's also true.
Game reps.
Absolutely.
A lot of coaches will tell you that there's nothing that replaces game reps. And I would think even with those young guys like receiver, the young guys, some of the young guys you mentioned, I think about Alante Brown, I think he played 9 snaps or so, or not even, against Ohio State, or Marcus Fleming. Those type of players would really have benefited from a Saturday game.
100%.
Yeah, a game really, ideally, if Nebraska could have taken control and then get a lot of guys a lot of reps in that situation against another team and getting them some confidence, I think I feel sort of, I don't know if I want to say I feel bad for Nebraska, but it just feels like a big lost opportunity to me.
Yeah. Randy says red-white game Saturday. Yeah, at this point with the long Big Ten slug ahead, hopefully, I think you'll see Nebraska back off its guys, if anything, this weekend. There's no reason to
think so. Yeah,
Parker, or all that.
I don't think they want to go against each other.
No, they've done that a lot.
Yeah, they've done a lot Parker a ton over the last several months. So I think another opponent would have been great, but that's not going to happen.
Jeremiah says, how long till we leave the Big Ten? Ha ha. But seriously, when are we leaving?
Here's the deal on that. Parker, I don't know. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. My initial thought on that is whenever something goes against Nebraska, it doesn't have to mean that it's not a great fit or whatever. I don't. That's the narrative right now.
Right.
But it's a little silly to me.
Yeah.
It's not silly that I don't think it's a great fit necessarily, but I don't think that this particular occurrence is, this big signal that the marriage is on shaky ground. I think that if you talk to Ronnie Green, he would say we love it in the Big Ten. Right. Now, I don't know what Scott Frost would say, but I think there's a lot of people you could find over there that would say, hey, we benefit greatly from being in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it's hard to I don't know. It's hard to remember anything pre-pandemic at this point. It's very much it's been quite a while now, several months, but I don't seem to remember it being really, really acrimonious before the postponements. Now, obviously, that's a huge moment and a huge decision, and will have ramifications for years. So it is a major. But the way I explained it earlier this week on the radio is what it feels like to me, and especially with this cancellation and not being able to play. I thought they should be able to play this weekend. I haven't heard a good rationale for why not yet, and certainly not from the conference. But it feels to me a little bit like, if it's you and your buddy, or maybe you and your wife or whatever, when you go through a stretch where you're always on each other's nerves.
Yeah.
And then then even when you say something or do something that you don't intend to be acrimonious, the other party is like, what the hell? Like, what is wrong with this person? And then it's like, no matter what you do, you're pissing the other person off and vice versa. And that seems to be sort of like where Nebraska and the Big Ten are at. And so to me, like the $54 million a year question is a year from now, or when things kind of go back to normal or whatever, like are the two sides going to wake up and realize that they don't actually dislike each other that much? They just didn't get along there for a while. Or are they going to wake up 2 years from now and think like, yeah, I really don't like this?
Well, I don't know. That's a good, you asked a good question, but the one thing, and we always do that, Parker, I feel like a lot of us do this. We don't, all of us are feeling sort of various stresses in our life that are new. And we don't take into account that we're in the middle of a very, very nasty pandemic.
Right.
And you mentioned it, you said it yourself. A lot of this has just cropped up during a pandemic, that's created situations that nobody could have anticipated, new forms of stress. This situation with Tennessee Chattanooga, where I guess, it seems like I'm reading national writers, and it seems like what Nebraska is guilty of in the minds of certain people is doing what's best to enhance the experience for the student athletes.
Right.
Like it's somehow wrong for Nebraska to want its football players to play football on Saturday because it goes against this unity in the Big Ten. It's sort of weird. Like, what is that? Is it patently wrong for Nebraska to fight for its players' right to play and be aggressive in doing so? I sort of am drawn to that sort of rugged individualism that Nebraska shows. Right?
You are ruggedly individualistic. So.
Well, I'm not personalizing it. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah,
they just were aggressive in seeking out an opponent, and it seems like all these national guys are like, why would they do that?
Yeah,
why not?
I know, but I'll give you an example of like something I saw today. I saw multiple people say, like, I hope that the Big Ten I hope that Nebraska informed the Big Ten that they were going to at least look into this before they took this proposal. Like the idea being that it was somehow going to make the Big Ten mad that they sort of lined up Tennessee Chattanooga before they took the proposal to the President's Council. Like that, it should have been like, hey, do you mind if we look into this? And then, which, like, first of all, you're talking about a 72-hour window to try to get a team from across the country here to play a game, and you're starting on Tuesday for a Saturday game. I mean, Nebraska's got a game on the schedule for 2035. So, like, it's a pretty heavy lift for 3 days. And then I was thinking, like, why? Why do they need to do that? You can't run concurrent processes in an extremely compressed timeline. And to me, that's just sort of like, that's what I'm talking about, where it's like, if that's really something that would have rubbed the President's Council the wrong way, then the two sides are just irritable with each other in the first place. Like that, that's a conversation that adults should be able to have. Hey, look, we started this process before we brought it to the council because literally every minute and every hour in this situation helps.
Well said, Parker. The only thing I would add to that is, couldn't you actually praise Nebraska for its initiative and its aggression in fighting for its players? Couldn't you just turn the conversation that way really easily?
Right.
Give credit to Nebraska for saying, we're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we like to do in America? Is make. All right, I'm sorry I did that, but make it happen.
Make it happen.
And do it for your student athletes. Because Parker, you're not that far from being a student athlete, and those kids they want to play. You identify with that. It's crushing. It's a crushing thing. The fact that the Wisconsin game got canceled was a crushing blow to those kids. I'd say the vast majority of them. And then So Frost goes to them Wednesday and says, "Hey, I think we got something. Let's practice. I think we're going to have a game Saturday," and it gives them a jolt of life. And then the Big Ten says no, and doesn't even provide an explanation.
I know. It's really offending in a way. Like, how can you can just tell those kids, like, hey, I know this could have happened, but no, it can't, and we don't have to tell you why, or we just won't even deign to tell you why. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, it does seem weird. I'm glad we definitely share that sentiment, Parker.
Oh, there's a lot of sentiment in the comments about this. So we won't. I'm sorry. Like, we've sort of been talking about this. You can also check out our podcast from yesterday. We talked about this at length and sort of anticipated that this might happen. There's a couple of practical questions in here, though, that we can talk about, Sipple. Julie asks a couple sort of baseline questions. Are there any other college games that have had to cancel? Yeah, Julie, a lot. I mean, I think the list, in the 30s.
34
so
now, I think.
Yeah, so far this season. The difference in the Big Ten is that the Big Ten schedule is laid out in such a way that there's no way to make them up because there's no bye weeks. And so that's, there's been a lot of games that have been canceled. Many of them have been rescheduled. Some of them haven't. But yeah, and then Julie's other question was Wisconsin testing every day like we have been. Yes. Everyone in the Big Ten has the same or at least very similar testing protocols. Let's see. Yeah. Can someone ask Warren why non-conference games aren't allowed? Lonnie, I asked the Big Ten exactly that today. Have not heard an answer. Lucas, what if Nebraska would go ahead and play UTC without Big Ten approval? Sipple?
Probably not a good idea. I don't know what the penalty would be. I don't know that there would be a penalty, but it wouldn't do anything for the relations. I just don't think Ronnie Green would allow that to happen. That's the bottom line, Lucas. Ted Carter's the president. Ronnie Green's the chancellor. They're interested in maintaining good relationship, good rapport with the Big Ten, not only on an athletic level, but an academic level, and just openly flouting the Big Ten's decision to not allow Nebraska to do it would not be a wise move.
Now that there's actually football games happening, the immediate ability of the Big Ten to penalize Nebraska is actually probably enhanced, right? I mean, you could make the argument that, the only option in the summer was the nuclear option when there was no schedule. Like, what were you going to do short of, when Kevin Warren said, well, they can't do that and stay in the conference? Now there's options beside that because every team's going to get a revenue share from the television this year.
Right.
So now you've got this pot of money, probably in the neighborhood of $40 or $50 million that you could threaten and say, go ahead and play, but we'll cut your share out. That sort of thing is probably, I would guess that's how that conversation would go.
Yeah. I just don't think it would, I just don't think it openly going against a decision it just seems unwise.
Yeah. Jack asked, do you think if Nebraska were in Wisconsin's situation, orange red, that they would cancel a game or play it?
Well, there's a lot of factors in that.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
Yeah. There's a lot of variables in the discussion that I'd have to know before I would answer that. And I feel, frankly, uncomfortable answering the question. I will say this. I don't look at what Wisconsin did in canceling this as I look at it as a sound decision, a responsible decision. 6 coaches and 6 players, and now 3 additional. I just saw on the scroll. So they had 6 coaches test positive, 6 players. That was the report yesterday, and now there's reports that there's 3 more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it would be a great idea for Wisconsin to come to Lincoln and perhaps even put Nebraska in compromise Nebraska's safety. So no, I think it's a good decision.
And so now they had 1 active case. This wasn't clearly explained yesterday, but they had 1 active case, which this is to be expected at some point, before they played. That was the 1 test that was like on Wednesday last week. So currently active cases, they have 8 players and 8 staffers.
Okay. Now, Parker, that seems like a significant number to me.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I think you've seen some teams play in that range across the country. It wouldn't have been unprecedented, but at the same time, it depends. I think it depends a lot on, do you have an idea of where you are in the outbreak? I think that the fact that they are going to have to travel probably matters, rather than being at home.
Mhm.
Like you said, there's a lot of factors. Jesse says mango dulls the pain. There you go. Lucas is checking in from Greeley, Colorado. Lonnie's watching from Mississippi. It's sweet, guys. Good work. Someone else in here said Green Bay.
Cool.
Yeah, right now, Pack's on track to play on Saturday or on Sunday. So,
Yeah. Good.
Kurt asks, will Xavier Betts get playing time against Northwestern?
Parker?
Yeah, I think it's 50. I would call it 50-50. I know that they really like him, and he's made a lot of progress, and he's in that group of young receivers. I mean, if you go by who played against Ohio State, you're likely maybe to see Alante Brown and Marcus Fleming first. That obviously could change over the course of 2 weeks of practice. I know they like Betts physically a lot, obviously, and he's made some strides. So wouldn't be totally impossible to think that you might see him. I mean, he traveled to Columbus and was one of the few players that traveled and didn't appear in the game. So yeah, I mean, for sure, there's a chance. He's definitely in the conversation to see playing time. It was Carl that was watching from Green Bay. Thanks, Carl. What do we have to do to join the SEC, Don says.
Get an invite.
Yeah.
Number one.
Chris, can I bill Wisconsin for my lost cardboard cutout exposure time? Yeah. That's in our litigious society, maybe you should just sue and see how it goes. That'd be fun. Let's see. Why wouldn't all these situations be ironed out and in the outline of the return to play rules so there was no confusion from the Big Ten? Michael, great question.
Yeah, I mean, there's a mitigating factor. There's always this mitigating factor in that sort of thing. Before I would admonish the Big Ten for that, we're flying by the seat of our pants in a lot of decisions.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a weird. The world's strange right now.
Lloyd from London, Ontario. What's up? Getting toward
nice.
Home of the London Knights of the OHL. Good hockey town, not surprisingly. Omar's played college ball, others different. Only new system and Big Ten the difference. Yeah, Lloyd. I mean, you're right. Omar Manning should be further. I mean, he's further along physically, obviously. He's a big, strong guy, 6'4", 220. According to Matt Lubick this week, 215, 220, somewhere in there. So yeah, I mean, getting Omar Manning up to speed isn't about that so much as it's just about the time he missed from practice. I mean, I've heard this week that maybe this week was the first time he'd been at practice in more than 3 weeks. So, that's the kind of timeline you're talking about when you're talking about Omar Manning. And so it's what Matt Lubick said. Now he's healthy, and it's about getting him to the point where he's healthy and confident. And confident in Matt Lubick's eyes means understanding what you're supposed to be doing on every play, understanding your assignment, your role, and the concept of the offense. And once you've got that, then you can really.
You nailed it. It's confidence. A lot of it's confidence. That's critical. I mean, they're right into league play, Parker, and Northwestern can play defense. Obviously, hey, think about it, Parker. They were playing Ohio State, then they were going to play Wisconsin, which clearly, well, think about it. Wisconsin has 10 guys in the secondary, 9 for sure, that have starting experience.
Yep.
Okay, that's what he was going up against. Now he will go up against the Northwestern defense that's strong. That's a strong suit of Northwestern. Yep. It is. You got to be careful as a coach to not put your guys in position where they lose confidence, because sometimes it's hard to get back. The guy to remember is Maurice Purify in this conversation, whom in 2006 was a big receiver like Omar Manning, 6'3", 215, 220. And through 3 games, he only had 3 catches.
Right.
But then caught fire. And the rest of the season was a major league weapon. But through 3 games, it took him a little while to adjust to the league. and to major college football. And
Um,
Maurice was famous for saying he thought that snow came up from the ground.
Yeah.
That was
It was
always very
falling from the sky the other day, that's for sure. Maybe it comes up from the ground sometimes. Jesse asks, Sip, is Barry Alvarez the real Big Ten commissioner?
He's pretty powerful. He would be a good commissioner. He's savvy. He's savvy. And he has a lot of respect. Parker, he's interesting to me, like the Zoom call with reporters the other day. He still addresses the team as if he were the coach of the team.
Yeah, and everybody there, like all the players on the team, call him Coach Alvarez.
I think the world of him as a leader. I mean,
even when I was my senior year of college, I was working for the student newspaper there, and that was when I like ran over to Camp Randall because Brett Bielema just quit. He took the Arkansas job and he was just gone. Yeah. And that was it was after the 2012 Big Ten championship game against Nebraska, and they had won obviously, and they were getting ready for the Rose Bowl, and Bielema just bolted for Arkansas, and it was like, well, Coach Alvarez will just coach the Rose Bowl. That was the sentiment from the players, and it wasn't like there was no getting used to calling him that they just already called him coach. I was like, this is really weird. He hasn't been the coach in like 6 years.
Right.
Now it's been damn near 15 years, and still it's like Coach Alvarez.
Oh, I'd say he's really powerful in the Big Ten and well respected.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Lonnie's got a great question. Heard the ACC pushed back their championship game. Do you think the Big Ten would do that to allow the makeup week? Yeah, Lonnie, the difference is the ACC pushed their game back from December 12th to December 19th. The Big Ten's already on December 19th. And currently, now this could change depending on how haywire, other leagues get. Currently, the reason why you can't play the championship game later than December 19th is because the playoff selection committee selects the playoff field and the New Year's Six bowl games on the 20th, on Sunday after the Big Ten championship game, the day it's scheduled. Now, the benefit originally, like before the pandemic, the Big Ten championship game, most of them were scheduled for December 5th, 2 weeks earlier than where they are now. So the difference is some of these other leagues that got started before the Big Ten, they kept their championship game, on the 12th or even the 5th, but then they built in that they had that flexibility. Hey, we could slide the championship game back, make up games in December. The Big Ten got started late enough that they just had to. There were only 8 weeks, 9 weeks, including the 19th before the selection committee. Okay. Let's see. If it was Penn State that had 12 to 15 positive tests and had to cancel their game with Ohio State, would Ohio State have had a better chance of getting a non-con game? Ransom, according to the Big Ten, no. They're sticking by that rule. Interesting theoretical, but nobody's playing non-conference games this year. That was made clear today. Chris asked if the Ireland game has been canceled for next year. Nope, not that we've heard. In fact, we've heard from Bill Moose that they're trying. Obviously, they're really adamant on trying to keep that thing on. So we'll see how that goes over the next few months. But as of now, it's definitely still on. Tim, sorry I joined late. What was the Big Ten's reason for saying no? They don't have one so far. They haven't expressed one publicly. Bob says Sip is never acrimonious. That's right. Yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Parker knows how to push my buttons.
Right? I could piss you off if I really tried, maybe.
Well, you know how. Yeah, you're smart. You're savvy.
I'm not going to try right now. Andrew,
it'd be fun if you wanted to. If you want to do it, you could. I'm not.
Tom Dinsdale Automotive might not be real happy about that.
That's true. That's
the rest of the time, like trying to incite extreme anger. Andrew says, what about the suspensions for the 2 players? Could Nebraska appeal that, considering they missed a whole game this weekend? Yeah, Andrew, not that we know of. Deontay Williams and Cam Taylor-Britt will have to sit the first half against Northwestern. But I heard Joel Klatt, and I heard Joel Klatt say this today, and Klatt as Sipple knows, and as you guys might know, has been really against the idea, just the implementation of this targeting rule. And it's even more profound this year because now Nebraska is playing at the most 8 games, including the last, the crossover on December 19th or championship game or whatever, instead of 12 or 13. And so now, I mean, you're talking about missing an eighth of the season, basically. I mean, both those guys were kicked out in the third quarter. So you're talking about 3 quarters minimum, 3+ quarters of game action in an already shortened season. Now you lose a game, and it just it's way too stiff a penalty. I mean, to miss that much time in a year where you really don't get that much time in the first place, and now you've lost another game. I mean, it just is. I mean, you can hope that they'll go back on that, but there's really no indication to suggest that they will.
Yeah, that's too bad. It is.
Let's see. A lot of questions. Thanks, guys. This is awesome.
Keep them rolling, Parker. Keep them rolling.
Nate says Nebraska makes money in the Big Ten. You want them to go to the Mountain Western Conference USA and make no money? Of course not. Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
No.
Matt, we talked about Omar Manning earlier. I know we're like way behind on these questions. They most of them that I'm looking at came in a little bit ago. So sorry for the delay. We just get to yap, and Chris says I'm proud of our team for making things happen despite the heavy hand of the Big Ten. Any truth to Wisconsin practicing the past 2 days? Daniel, I mean, they're not totally shut down. They're not practicing in person, but they are apparently they're doing Zoom meetings and stuff like that. But they've not. The last time they were on the practice field was on Tuesday. I mean, it's not like we're in Madison and we can know that categorically, but based on what has come out in the press conferences and all that, Tuesday. Kent's in Eagle, Idaho. Kent, bet you got some snow up there. Let's see. Does Bill Moose lack influence or political savvy to navigate the Big Ten waters? Seems like he has a hard time accomplishing much, Jeff says.
Well, I don't think this was – you can't pin this on Moose. I mean, you wonder a little bit about that. Ronnie Green was the representative at the Big Ten chancellors and presidents meeting today. I'm not sure if Winston Churchill could have gotten Nebraska a game against Tennessee Chattanooga. I don't think it would have mattered who was necessarily in that spot.
If it was Winston Churchill, they'd be playing Manchester United.
Okay, how about Dwight Eisenhower?
There you go. Who rebuffed the attempts at help from Churchill for a long time. That's probably enough history for the day.
That's pretty good, Parker.
I just read that there's a really great Churchill book that just came out. So check it out, Eric Larson. Dirk says, I just really wanted to play against Graham Mertz.
Yeah, I got a tick. Right, I mean, there's a tick I have with certain names I have a lot of trouble with.
What are the early – here's a good one for you, Sipple. What are your early thoughts on Northwestern? They beat up Maryland pretty good. Maryland's obviously very bad, and have Iowa this Saturday.
I have a lot of early thoughts. I'm interested in what Northwestern's all about. I go back to what their head coach said after they finished 3-9 last year and 1-8 in the Big Ten. He told his team this will never happen again. I mean, that's an excellent head coach there. And he hired an offensive coordinator named Bajakian from Boston College, who, I mean, immediately Northwestern goes out and puts 537 yards and 43 points on Maryland. And, they have the Indiana transfer, Peyton Ramsey.
Really talented quarterback.
He's a good quarterback. Yeah. I like him. He doesn't have huge arm talent, but he's a smart kid and operates an offense really well. I would tell you this. I think it'll be an extraordinarily difficult game for Nebraska. Winnable, but I think close. And I think if I were a Nebraska fan, and in Park, I think we'll be able to do this. I'm really interested in seeing the Northwestern Iowa game. in part
Yeah.
because Iowa could go to 0-2. And that's a pretty good rivalry, too. Those teams get after each other.
Yeah, I definitely will be paying close attention to that on Saturday. Wish we didn't have the ability to do that, but as it stands, we'll be watching closely. Couple of football questions to close this thing off. Oh, Nate, still want to offer a sip of beer here in Albuquerque. Man, Sip, you ought to take Nate up on that.
Love the state of New Mexico. I've been to Albuquerque and I loved it. I still want to go to Santa Fe sometime, but if I ever get down there, we'll go have a margarita. How about that?
Kurt says, who's the better all-around back, Mills or Tompkins?
Well, I think the experience edge would make that answer fairly easy. Dedrick Mills is an accomplished back at the college level, both at Georgia Tech and Nebraska. So, yeah, I'd say Dedrick. And Dedrick has all the qualities that Tompkins would have as a runner, and also probably – I don't know. Ryan Held did say Ronald Tompkins was one of the best pass catchers on the team, regardless of position. But Dedrick can catch the ball too. I have a high regard for Mills. I was a little surprised he only had 9 carries, I think, for 33 yards against the Buckeyes. I would expect he'll be used more going forward.
Yeah, they gave him 8 yards on a run that was actually Martinez, so he was 9 for 25.
9 for 25? Really? That's it?
Yeah, there was a correction on Sunday. Yeah. Yep, got to get the bell cow going, Sip.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. John says Bill Moose is exactly who I want representing us. Michael says, how does all of this help or hurt recruiting? Yeah, I don't know, Michael. I mean, time will tell on that. The thing,
question.
Look at it. You can look at it either way, I think. I mean, it obviously hurts to not be playing, because the best thing that Nebraska can do in recruiting is win. I mean, but in the midst of all of the craziness, there's one consistent thing about Nebraska is they push really hard to play. And I don't want to make this sound like they've done that only for recruiting purposes, but it certainly doesn't hurt on the recruiting front to always be out there and be vocal about, hey, we want to play, we want to play, we want to play. Because, there's a lot of high school kids that have had seasons impacted or whatever. And there's a lot of high school football players that feel that same pain or have gone through that same tough situation where they've had games or seasons or whatever taken away from them. And so I'm sure it doesn't hurt that Nebraska has been on the front line of trying to play when it comes to the recruiting conversation. Nate asks if they're allowing any Big Ten stadiums allowing fans this year. No, that's a Big Ten. That's another Big Ten edict. No tailgating around stadiums, no fans in stadiums, aside from family members, 4 family members per student athlete and coach, and then a few other people, stadium people, and some reporters. The official attendance at Ohio Stadium, which included Sipple and me on Saturday for Ohio State, was 1,344 in the building, and that included the teams and the coaches. So,
so Wisconsin's not even allowing parents.
Right now. And it was interesting. So that's Jeff told you this morning on the radio, right? That's because of the COVID numbers and levels in Dane County.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see if the dial goes to red here. I mean, I don't know if that's.
I think it's supposed to, Parker.
Yeah.
I'm not in the health department, but
it could be. Okay, let's see. 3 more. With all the talk of Nebraska utilizing tight ends more, were you surprised by the lack of targets this past Saturday, especially with Vokalek? Also, shut up, Sipple. Yeah, perfect. Good work, Brett. I wasn't. I mean, I think they were targeted 7 times, 5 catches. Mm-hmm. And remember, Frost has mentioned it like 2 or 3 times on Monday. Nebraska ran 58 plays, I think, on Saturday, which is about 25 fewer than they want to in a typical game. I mean, they want to be up 80 plus. So part of that is just the volume wasn't there in terms of the number of plays they ran, but I think you'll continue to see him. As for Vokalek, it looked to my eye, just like playing time wise, formation wise, it looked like they had him basically 3rd on the depth chart, but dependent behind Stoll at 1 and Allen 2. But depending on what Jack Stoll's status is going forward with that left knee injury, I mean, it could be a lot more Vokalek going forward.
Mm-hmm.
How long before Luke takes over at quarterback? Ronnie asks. Simple.
I don't see it happening. Listen. I understand the question. The best way to answer it is Adrian would have to falter for this to happen. Adrian's quarterback one right now, and he showed why against Ohio State. He had a good game against Ohio State. I thought he looked good. He was 13 for 15 for 105, right? I thought he ran the offense well. He's good at the line. He's good getting the team organized and all of that. I thought he ran the ball well. There's nothing. As long as Adrian's playing okay to well to very good, I just don't see it. I don't see why they would make a change.
Matt asks, am I crazy for thinking Nebraska's offense might look very different against Northwestern than it did at Ohio State?
Well, I don't know. Parker, you wrote a great story about how much they can diversify. Yeah. So that kind of question is sort of tricky to answer, right? I don't know what the game plan is going to look like on a game-to-game basis. It was quarterback run heavy against Ohio State, and that became very evident right away that it could be that way. And that explains why Dedrick Mills only had 9 carries. Will it look like that against Northwestern? I don't know, Parker. What do you think?
I don't know. I think we have very little data to go on, considering they've just played the one game and this Matt Luke's first year in charge. And clearly, McCaffrey's a different weapon this year than he was last year. They can play him as much as they want. You don't know how much they think differently if Jack Stoll's out or Omar Manning's in. And so I really have no idea. It's going to be very interesting. One of the things I was most interested to see against Wisconsin was what their offensive game plan looked like. One more quick one. Chris says, where do we find a receiver like Njiba from Ohio State? I was telling Sipple this on the plane on Sunday on the way back. Late in the 2018 recruiting process, the transition class, when Frost and company first got to Lincoln, they were in on Chris Olave, and Olave was a 3-star guy. He wasn't that highly recruited. And they offered him, and they were recruiting a couple guys from California, Chris Olave and Andre Hunt. And Walters saw both of them and whatever, and then Ohio State swooped in and got Olave right at the end. And that obviously stung. Andre Hunt obviously got himself in a really bad situation here and isn't in the program anymore. And Olave's an NFL player. And Smith Njiba, that I think Nebraska was one of his first offers. He was in Rockwall, Texas, and he went from being a 3-star guy to a 5-star guy like that. And
wow, really?
Suddenly he was committed to the Buckeyes. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. We've been going for almost 45 minutes. We really appreciate you guys coming, all the questions, all the stuff. Hopefully next week, this time, we're getting ready to go to Chicago for a football game. But we've got a ton of coverage about the cancellation and Tennessee Chattanooga and looking forward and tiebreakers and what it looks like because of the shortened season. All that stuff on HuskerExtra.com. We appreciate Tom Dinsdale Automotive Group of Grand Island and Hastings for sponsoring this video. We will talk to you probably early next week, 2-minute drill on Monday, maybe something this weekend, although I don't know about that for sure with no games. So for Sipple, I'm Parker. Thanks for watching and have a great night.